Welcome to I Caught It on Audio. This is This Song Good episode 85. The Beatles, Now and Then.
Hello and welcome to I Caught It on Audio. In today's episode, we are continuing our Is This Song Good series. The theme this time around is posthumously released songs, and this is our first episode in this series, and we're doing a song that my son Jack suggested we do, and he's actually with us today. He suggested we do the recently released Beatles song Now and Then. So, Jack, why don't you tell us how you came to listen to the Beatles and why you wanted us to do this song?
Okay. So, my parents listened to the Beatles a lot in the car, and my music taste mostly comes from what they listened to, and that's how I got into the Beatles. And then I got really into the Beatles, and I listened to almost all their songs, and then I heard that they were working on the new song Now and Then, so I'd been looking forward to that, when I heard about it.
Yeah. So, Dan, why don't you tell us what you think of this song?
I think it's good. I think it's a good song. It's not, Yesterday or A Day in the Life or anything like that, but it is the only remaining available demo with John Lennon on it, I think.
Yeah.
So
it's dubbed as the last Beatles song.
Yeah, and this was originally attempted back in the mid '90s when they did that Beatles anthology on ABC, and they put the compilation album from it, and they did Free as a Bird and Real Love, and they had better quality demos for that. And this feels very much in line with those. You're like, yes, this is recognizably a Beatles song. It sounds like them, and it's as usual, the Beatles always write really, really catchy and beautiful melodies. You got the Ringo style drumming, it just, and the Paul McCartney bass line. It feels very much in line with that. Not if this was just a song off of Revolver or something, you wouldn't think it's one of the great Beatles songs, but because, we don't get Beatles songs anymore, you're like, sweet, this is a good Beatles song. Yeah. We'll take it. The production was weirdly full, especially considering the still slightly thin sounding Lennon vocals.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the piano sounds super full and it's got the orchestration, and hey, you know what? They can, McCartney and Ringo Starr can finish the song however they want. I know that they had too much tape hiss or whatever on the original demo to get it done back in the 90s, and then technology solved that problem. And, they have the right to do it however they want, and I don't think it really hurts the song much, but it is something I noticed. That's my only real complaint. It's, a nice sort of little melancholy song, really pretty, great melodies. And it feels like the Beatles, broadly speaking, because you got the harmonies and the bass and the drums. And yeah, it was, I quite enjoyed listening to it. I thought this is another good Beatles song, if not one of their, I don't know that it would go on the greatest hits, but it's definitely a good song. Dave, why don't you give your thoughts next, since you often go last in these situations?
Yeah. Well, I hated it. No, I'm just kidding. That seems to be the way it's been going lately. Dan goes, Zach goes, and then I argue with everything you guys just said. But no, I agree with everything you just said, Dan. This is a wonderful song. It's great to hear the Beatles again. It's great to hear John Lennon's voice in a new song, singing new words and all that stuff. It's unfortunate that his original recording was on just a, regular old cassette that was muddied with, probably inadequate miking and all that stuff. It was recorded as a demo. It was recorded as something that he would then bring to a studio and then re-record all the parts just to keep the ideas, right? Obviously. And then, they weren't able to extract his voice well in the 90s. And then Peter Jackson had this technology, brand new technology that he'd been working on, and was able to pull the vocals out flawlessly. And man, it is good. It is thin, and I think that's again due to the original source material being on a lackluster medium. But I love it. I think it's great. I love the bass line. The lyrics are hauntingly good. Like it's weird that it's Lennon singing the song, how he thinks about wanting to be a part of, wanting someone else to be a part of his life every now and then. From time to time, he misses them. When it's, as the listener, you kind of get this feeling of, I wish John Lennon could be in my life from time to time again.
Yeah. If this was the exact same song by somebody else, it wouldn't have the sort of additional baggage or heft behind it because of most people's, cultural relationship to the Beatles and John Lennon dying young, and so long ago. But I think you're right.
Yeah.
That adds additional emotional punch to it that it wouldn't have had otherwise.
I don't know. What do you think, Zach?
I really liked it as well. Like you guys said, it's got that modern production in there, but it's not excessively compressed or overdriven or any of those things.
Right.
It feels full for the parts that are added in, but it feels fine. It feels like, what I would expect a remaster would sound like from something a long time ago. And I really like, I mean, it's definitely a Beatles song, but I feel like it's more of a what could have been.
Yeah.
It's sort of a glimpse through history. You've got the part that comes from John Lennon. It was recorded late 70s, I believe. And then you've got the part that whatever parts, I don't know exactly which ones, but definitely the George Harrison guitar embellishments were added in from the mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the bass and the drums and the strings and the slide guitar added in now. So it's this nice little kind of retrospect. You get a little bit of different time periods, and it all works together really well. It's very emotional. It's very unique. And I really liked the strings and the slide parts, the parts where it's just, kind of like the soloing, and it really elevates what's being said in the lyrical parts. I also watched the YouTube documentary about it. It's about 12 minutes long, and I really like the part where they're talking about how they had to kind of come up with this fake name when they were going to record the string parts, so that nobody would know that it was actually the Beatles song being worked on.
Right.
It was that they just thought it was something for Paul McCartney for his next album or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, no, it's a really, really good one. It's a fun, nice little kind of brings closure, I think, to the Beatles catalog, and I hope that it stays that way. I hope that we don't get to a point where the music record companies decide that they want to dump everything into an AI generation machine and create new Beatles songs based on the old, because I'd rather just have it be, as close to what it could have been and just leave it at that and let their body of work speak for itself.
Yeah. And that's the scary thing about AI, but also, I mean, without it, we wouldn't have this song, right? I mean, that's essentially what Peter Jackson's thing is. It's machine learning, and it was able to separate the voice from the piano in the recording. And it's phenomenal because there's no other way that this song gets made without that, right? But then it's scary to think that it could then learn how to write a Beatles song, and there would be endless non-Beatle contributor Beatles songs, So
it'd really dilute it. I got a question for not Zach. I have a question for Jack. Number one, why does your name sound so much like Zach's?
You're gonna have to ask my parents for that one.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting point.
We don't know how to spell.
They were trying to name after Zach and failed. Z's and J's are very similar.
Yeah.
So, you have more recently gotten into the Beatles because obviously you weren't alive when we were like, I don't know how it is for you, Zach, but Dave and I got into the Beatles. He
wasn't alive when we were teenagers. You're right.
Yes, exactly. Dave and I were getting into the Beatles like in high school.
Yeah, about his age.
Mid-90s, right?
Right.
And so, and for me, I really, really got into the Beatles then and really enjoyed it. And part of some of the songs I knew just from existing, and my parents loved the Beatles, so it had been around. But then I really got into it, and I listened to a bunch of the Beatles stuff. And I'm not saying that I'm not a big Beatles fan now exactly, but I'm not an active Beatles fan. And so there's this 30 years ago almost when I was like really listening to the Beatles a lot more, and then I don't really listen to the Beatles very often anymore. So this feels very spaced out from that era for me. So I don't know if my opinions on it are changed. To me, it sounds a lot like intellectually like the Free as a Bird or Real Love.
There is a question coming if you were wondering.
But what I wonder is, Jack, you've been listening to them more recently. It sounds like, does this feel like a normal Beatles song, like just another Beatles song, or is there something different about it? Does it feel like, does this fit right in for you, or does this feel different than your knowledge of the other Beatles songs that you enjoy?
I think it fits in well. Like, I think for the tools that they had and the poor medium of the cassette recording, I think that they did a great job, and they made it sound like a genuine Beatles song.
Yeah, I would agree that he feels that way. I would agree that it does. For me, it does. It also feels like a real Beatles song, and it's wonderful that they were able to get Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr involved in the making of the finishing of this song, and even George Harrison. The stuff from the '90s when they tried to do it initially. I think it's a testament to especially Paul McCartney's songwriting abilities and integrity that he just they really nailed the overall feel of the music.
And even though that slide guitar part isn't George Harrison, it was Paul McCartney doing that. It feels very much like something George Harrison would have come up with.
Yeah, and it's based on something that he had written, but what I would imagine happened was the time, the meter of the songs, the George Harrison recording didn't match the current version was, so they had to re-record the actual part.
Yeah, and these guys spend so much time together. I think they could kind of know a little bit about what they couldn't always do exactly the same thing, but they would know enough about their stylings that they could kind of reproduce it.
And McCartney he's a musical genius, but he's not a theory guy. But he always he wrote an opera without knowing how to write down music. So
right,
he's able to be like, if he hears it, he can execute it.
Yeah,
he was the most talented, I think, musically of all the Beatles. As good as everybody was. As good as songwriters, and you might even argue Lennon was a better songwriter because he had more of an edge. But I think as far as facility with instruments and being able to turn what he hears into something to present down, I don't think there's anyone better than McCartney. So he was able to do that, and it's really impressive. Mm-hmm. So Jack, does this fit in? Is this what in your top half of Beatles songs? Is it kind of in the middle? Is it too early to tell? Is it maybe a little lower down?
In my opinion, all of the Beatles songs are at the top, but I don't know. I think it's too early to tell.
The nice thing is you get to spend time with it in the phase when you're really getting to know the Beatles, so it'll have a fair shake. I think for me, it's hard for me to give it a fair shake because it's so removed from my initial dive into the Beatles. Right. I don't know if Zach and Dave, you guys feel that way too.
Yeah, when I think about it from that perspective, I try to think of where I thought Free as a Bird fit. And because that was That was the new Beatles song that came
Yeah.
out while we were listening to the Beatles for the very first time, And I really like that one, and I think this one does just as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna listen to some Beatles, I'm probably gonna throw on Revolver, but
Right.
Yeah.
this is just as good, and I'll be happy if YouTube Music decides to throw it on in a playlist that I start listening to.
Absolutely. You guys have anything else on this one?
No, it's just an enjoyable song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's vote. Is this song good? Jack, why don't you start?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Dan?
Yes.
Zach?
Yep.
So it sounds like it's unanimous. This song is going to make our I Caught It on Audio 64 Tacos approved playlist. Next week it's going to be 2 weeks. We've got a song that you picked, Dan. What song is that?
We are going to do the Nirvana song "You Know You're Right," which came out in 2002, and it's the last. We just did the last Beatles song, hopefully, and now we're going to do the last Nirvana song, hopefully.
All right, excellent. So tell us what you think about the Beatles song "Now and Then" in the comments, if that's something you can do. Tell us whether you think the song is good or not. If you want more content like this, you can find everything we've done at 64tacos.com. And if you really liked it, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/64tacos. You can buy us a taco. Thanks for listening.
I caught it on audio